Instant scores and constant updates. Any stat that's ever been computed. Highlights, breakdowns, and analysis of every game from thousands of writers in hundreds of cities. What sports fan could complain about that? But there's also this, the Wild West of the internet, the blogosphere, a virtual bulletin board where anyone can post anything, opinions, photos, videos, all blurring the lines between news and gossip, truth and rumor, commentary and insult. Among the most popular blogs is Deadspin.com, which boasts sports news without access, favor, or discretion as its motto. If you're a famous athlete, you don't want to end up on Deadspin, especially if you were out drinking the night before. The site gets 10 million hits a month. Will Leitch is its 32-year-old founder.
If something's true and something is valid and something is worthwhile doing, I will do it. But I think that gets confused sometime with, all right, what can I dig up on somebody? Like, that's not what it is at all. It's just a matter of, like, you know, if something is newsworthy enough, it will be covered. And sometimes those things are not necessarily PG.
Will Leitch is unapologetically a fan, in his case, of the St. Louis Cardinals. Just go to Deadspin and read all about it.
One of the fundamental principles of journalism is honesty and forthrightness. And I think if I pretended that I did not have my own viewpoints and I did not have my own biases, I'm not sure how that's being more truthful to the reader. I've never quite understood the idea that, like, well, now I'm a journalist, so now I cheer for no team. Really? Why'd you get into sports in the first place?
The average person would rather read someone like Bill Simmons and a list of details about the game. I mean, that information is no longer received from newspapers. That information you get in an ESPN ticker, or you get on the internet, or you get on XM radio, or whatever.
If you're really waiting to read the game story in the newspaper to find out what happened in the Cardinals game last night, you're probably over the age of 50.
I have producers. They're 40 years old. They're incredibly well-educated. They're incredibly informed. They don't care about newspapers, and that depresses the hell out of me.
And the revolution that's taking place can be unsettling. If younger fans don't appreciate real credentials and inside access, what's the future of newspaper coverage and sports journalism? The new wave doesn't appear concerned.
Anytime someone does something new or something a little bit different, everyone's like, that's not really journalism. That's not really what we do. But it's just not what you do.
Okay, joining us now at our roundtable here in New York are, as seen in the piece, Deadspin founder and editor Will Leitch, who's also the author of the book God Save the Fan. Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter and author of Friday Night Lights, Buzz Bissinger, and Cleveland Browns Pro Bowl wide receiver, Braylon Edwards. All right, Will, we'll start with you. The way this was framed by you and Michael Schur is, hey, what's the problem with having more information and quicker access to it? What's the problem with somebody being able to voice their opinion? Right. Instead of just hearing it from a cab driver, now that cab driver can go on the internet, he can blog, he can be on a site, he can express his opinion. And Schur is 100% right when he says you don't need credentials in journalism to say that the Indians should pull Carmona in the 8th. But those are not the reasonable criticisms of the worst of the sports blogosphere. The reasonable criticism is of the tone of gratuitous potshots and mean-spirited abuse. That's the reasonable criticism.
You know, I think that, like, of course, any time that you realize that it's a different thing, it's not news to say that people are different online than they are in person. I think certainly in a lot of ways there are many things that we might say in an email or might say in the comment sections or so on that we would not say in real life.
As an example, to my surprise, I find you very palatable in person.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Even likable.
Give me talent in person, actually.
Oh, thank you. The makeup.
I'm just going to interject because I feel very strongly about this. I really think you're full of shit.
Okay, well, that's fair
Because I think that blogs are dedicated to cruelty. They're dedicated to journalistic dishonesty. They're dedicated to speed. I am over 50. Do you know who W.C. Hines is?
Yes.
Have you ever read him?
I've read The Professional.
Now tell me, you've read The Professional. Have you read his sports columns in the newspapers? Tell me, who has a better ability to evoke a game and a moment? W.C. Hines, one of the greatest writers ever living until he recently died, or this guy who's printed in your thing called Deadspin, and it's amazing to me that you say sports news without access, favor, or discretion when you admit to being biased for the Cardinals. Anyway, I can't tell if this guy's name, is this guy's name Balls Deep or Big Daddy Drew Balls?
Big Daddy Drew. It's Big Daddy Drew.
Okay, so Balls Deep. Well, I will read a little bit. Here's insight in blogging, because it really pisses the shit out of me, which is in your publication,
yeah, and
Deadspin.
I can find a ton of things in every publication
let me
anyway.
finish. He didn't need to see, listen to this, he didn't need to see Rich Garza's tits in order to glean insight as to how he pitches. Then in parentheses, this is so fucking clever. Though I've heard Rich Garza's tits are amazing. Shit, he didn't even need to see him play on TV. The difference between how Rick Riley...
we get the idea.
Yeah.
We get the idea.
And for the record, Rich Garza's, I am not familiar with his
And
breasts.
how can you be proud of that stuff? How can you be proud of it?
No,
and
for
how
crying out
All right,
loud.
let him
Seriously,
respond, Buzz.
seriously,
Go ahead.
For crying out loud. Like, you can take anything off the... Of course there's going to be... This is a different voice. This is a new thing.
That's a
Certainly,
different voice. That's a disgusting voice.
well, maybe you think so, and maybe some people don't.
Want to read more?
The idea that all of a sudden this group of people that have been doing this for a long time now get to decide, okay, I find this palatable, I don't find this palatable, this has worked, this is effective, I don't like this. Like, I'm sure in 30 years I'm going to sit and be like, wow, I hate the heliographic multi-links that are now.
Hold on a second.
People,
we're going to get to Braylon Edwards
spoken words and
in just a moment. But Buzz, I don't know if Buzz would want to moderate his comment, but clearly that isn't everything that's on the internet in general or on blogs in particular.
Right.
There are a number of sports blogs that are well written, make good points, are insightful, and are funny. But there's a very large percentage where the quality is poor and where the tone is abusive.
Yeah, and frankly, those are not the ones that are most widely read. I think the nice things about the web is it's a meritocracy. Like, sure, anyone can start a blog, but to get a readership, you have to be serious. You have to be consistent. It's hard, goddamn work doing a blog. I mean, people have this idea that somehow it's just, oh, I just blah blah blah. Boom. This is hard work to build a readership, to bring people in that kind of understand your viewpoint. Tons of people aren't going to understand my viewpoint, clearly, but like there are those that will.
Fair enough, but this is from your website, Deadspin, all right, which is, I think, the most widely read sports website, is it not, or among them? Among them. All right. Sean Salisbury leaves ESPN. Now, these are posts. This isn't you, but you don't stop these posts from following what you put up there.
Might have been my
All right, it's HBO. Sean Salisbury leaves. Good riddance, fuckface. So long, you fetus-faced windbag. Good luck managing a Denny's, douchebag.
Yeah, those are commenters. Those are, okay, seriously. I mean, like, if we really can't differentiate between someone that writes a blog and the random people that comment afterwards, I mean, they are two different things.
We make that distinction. However, the tone that's established affects the posts.
No, I think that's true.
It affects the person. And it affects the person. And what does it add? What does it contribute? What does it contribute? I got a list here. I got a list of things. We
got to get Braylon in. Braylon, do you blog?
No.
Do you have teammates who blog?
No.
Do you follow it though? Do you ever check what's on the web? How do you get your sports news?
I would be lying if I said I didn't. You look at it from time to time. It's always interesting to see what the fans think about you, what they're saying in your own city for most parts. And sometimes you get some good things, sometimes you get some bad things. But really, it just keeps you. For me, it keeps me level. It keeps me humble, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm balling, if I'm not balling. They're honest. Oh, we don't like Braylon, he's doing this. Oh, well, we do like Braylon, he's doing that. So you check it just to see what the fans are thinking about you.
So you take some value from it?
A little bit. I mean, you don't want to take too much from it, because at the end of the day, it's just the fans on there. But
do younger people take it with more of a grain of salt because they grew up with it and take it less literally than perhaps Buzz does, or I do?
This is PTI right now. We can keep both these guys quiet for a second. Just put the mute button on both of them.
You got it.
But no, I think they do, and I think the young kids see it as an opinion. Like you said, there are some blogs that have genuine information, factual information, and do a good job of covering, sports. And they're very credible sources. Then you have ones that you said are few and far from the many. They talk about nothing. They talk about opinions. They're very animated. They're very perceptional. I actually saw the piece. I'm watching the piece, and you know, they have the Matt Leinart deal with him showing him at a house party, and this.
You have a problem with that, fellow NFL
I definitely have a
player?
problem with that because I think that was unfair to Matt. Here he is at a house party, and they're asking. The general headline is Matt Leinart working hard enough in off season? It doesn't say what day this party took place. This could have been a Friday, could have been a Saturday. It doesn't talk about what he did from Monday to Friday. Second of all, he's at his house. This is his house.
Do you make distinctions? Would you go through somebody's garbage, or if someone said,
I would not go through someone's garbage.
But suppose someone went through someone's garbage and obtained something that was interesting by someone's lights or incriminating. Would you run it?
Well, I mean, I think obviously this is a case-by-case thing, but if someone actually, I mean, realize these things aren't actually in anyone's garbage, they're on their Facebook page, they're on their MySpace page. Like, realize a lot of these things are put together. And, I mean, Braylon, have you ever actually had like paparazzi after you? Have you ever like walked out after a game and all of a sudden you're like a Hollywood star and there are paparazzi all over you?
No, because nowadays they have cell phones. You don't have to just be flashed and
That's
just
true.
but you know, out there, you know, you can sneak pics on the camera phone. You know, we can't go anywhere without watching ourselves, which we're supposed to do anyway. But there's a certain level of fun you can have. Now, are we doing anything different than athletes did in the 60s and the 70s? Not at all. We're doing the same thing as they did, but now you have internet, you have Deadspin, you have camera phones, where it's crazy now, so we have to really watch ourselves, and perception is reality. And you see this picture of Matt Leinart, it's like, oh, these guys are just high-paid partiers, and this is not the case. You know, but this perception is reality.
Why do you put it? That's what you're trying to get across, isn't it? Isn't that the perception you don't want to give your audience, that all these guys do is party and fuck around?
No, I think what the
then why do you post it on your site?
Because they're real human beings, and this idea
it's news.
Well, certainly, I think you can make an argument about the Leinart thing.
Let him respond.
News. But also for the idea that, like, if you sit and look at this and you have this idea that, like, okay, if you look at that picture of Matt Leinart, like I can't imagine a reasonable human being being like, you know what, I always liked Matt Leinart. I always enjoyed his football playing. But now that I know that he does a beer bong, I no longer can cheer for this guy. There's a real human being aspect. He's 23, 24 years old. Of course that's what he's doing. To me, the people that get upset about that.
So you're saying you put it on because it makes him look human.
It's also funny.
I may be over 50, but I'm not that stupid.
It's also funny. Of course it's also funny.
So you do it to humiliate him.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on, my ass.
I agree.
Braylon agrees. Two quick things here.
Yes, sir.
I don't understand the contention that all established media types would feel threatened by the internet explosion. It has no threat, poses no threat, so far as I can see, to television people because the games are going to be on, shows like this are going to be on. On the other hand, newspaper circulation is shrinking. People 18 to 34, a recent poll said, let's see, 19% of people ages 18 to 34 are regular newspaper readers. The average age of a newspaper reader is 55 and rising. They're getting some of that same material off the internet. So a writer might feel, even a quality writer like yourself, a little bit of a gathering storm here.
Yeah, of course. And maybe that's why I'm so heated and so angry. Because this guy, whether we like it or not, is the future. I'm not the future. I have a son who's 16 who's going to grow up. He's going to read much more what's on the internet and much more on blogs than he is reading what's in a newspaper or what's in a book. And what he is going to read is going to be glib. It is going generally to be profane. It is going to be quick.
It's a generalization. It has a lot of truth in it, but it's not all.
It is a generalization, and there are some good blogs out there, but I think they're very, very few and far between. I think the quality of the writing generally in blogs is despicable. And yes, I say this as a writer who spent 40 years of my life trying to perfect the craft.
One last point I'd like you to respond to. A.J. Delario on Deadspin wrote the following, criticizing what he called privileged sports writers, using Rick Riley as an example. He says you can't brutally criticize athletes and expect them to give you any access. Two parts of this question. Isn't that a false choice? Brutally criticize them or kiss their ass? What about responsibly criticizing them and responsibly praising them when they deserve it? Why would access preclude that?
Well, I think there's an element of truth that, I mean, again, I didn't write it. If AJ were here, I'd box his ears. But
Big Daddy Balls, by the way?
No,
Yeah, he is.
No, that's only after dark. But no, I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. No, but certainly one of the nice things, like certainly Deadspin's gotten large enough now that if I wanted to, I could sit in the press box.
Sure.
I could probably apply for a pass and be able to do that. But the minute I start doing that, I start writing for the other people in the press box. It's hard not to at a certain level. For me, I benefit, and not all bloggers do this. Some bloggers get benefit from that. But from my perspective, to me, I get a lot of benefit by having that kind of distance a little bit. I don't owe anything to anyone but the readers.
You know, fair enough. There are quality things and interesting things which can be written by getting the information from television or the web, and you don't have to be there. On the other hand, there are some things that couldn't possibly be done except by someone with some talent and powers of observation who has that access. Now, Delario goes on to write, he gets to go golfing with Bill Clinton, speaking of Rick Riley. He gets to ride in an Indy 500 race car. He gets to walk up to Sammy Sosa's locker and dare him to pee in a cup. He gets to do all that, and that's why he sucks. If you're a privileged sports writer, you're experiencing sports in a completely different way from normal, everyday fans. Well, yeah, and Woodward and Bernstein experienced Watergate differently than average citizens, and thus informed them. Ernie Pyle experienced World War II differently.
Right.
Jim Nance experiences the Masters differently. The question is, how well do they communicate it to you?
Of course, and I don't think anyone is saying get rid of all sports writers and get rid of all television. I'm saying that these things can complement each other. There's never been a post on Deadspin where I'm like, okay, the goal of this site is to get every sports writer fired. Like, there's so much value. Of course, listen, I'm 32. I'm old enough to actually remember newspapers and love them and grew up with them and waiting all night to have my first article posted in the newspaper. Does my 15-year-old cousin think that? I don't know if my 15-year-old cousin feels that way.
Braylon, I'll give you the last word. You've watched all this unfold. You're often the subject of it. You're the guy out there. Plus, minus, where do you think the balance comes down?
There are pros, there are cons. Obviously, we've said that all night. The internet is a factual source. I think it's very convenient. Makes it a lot easier now for people to go on the internet, find out what's going on, watch game by game, telecast, live, get stats, get everything like that. So those are the pluses. The minuses are these negative blogs and the opinions, and trying to find out what the perception is, what meets reality. At the end of the day, we're athletes. We know we're not the best at all times. We don't mind telling you we're not the best at all times. If you interview us and you say, hey, what happened? You had a couple drops there, Braylon, what happened? You know what? My head wasn't in those players. I dropped it, but all I can do is come back. But if you're just spewing venom online, just making up all kinds of things, or just giving your opinion and then give me a chance to respond to it, that's BS. I won't take his general cursing on.
You ever run into someone who you've defamed, and then you say, hey, he or she isn't so bad. I feel bad about what I wrote.
Well, I would make issue whether whether I've defamed someone, but certainly I've met people that I've written about before, and the vast majority of the people do have a good sense of humor about it. Some don't.
I'll give you a few seconds for the last word. A few.
Well, you know, what you're saying, you're sort of like Jimmy Olsen on Percocet. I mean, it sort of strikes me that you say you don't want to be in the press box because the facts will get in the way. You know, actually, the reason there is a press box is because you have a certain vantage point of the game. And it seems to me what you're saying is, I don't want facts. I don't want facts inhibit me. Facts get in my way. So I'm going to sit in my little room and I'm going to give this nebulous fan's voice. And I just don't know where you're coming from, except that I think you are perpetuating the future, and I think the future in the hands of guys like you is really, really going to dumb us down to a degree that I don't know we can recover from.
That has to be the end. I think that Chris Russo and Michael Strahan may have made at least an uneasy peace. I doubt that is true.